Okay, let's jump right into a totally wild story from American history. We're talking about a brand new house, some seriously epic parties, a super daring rescue, and, you guessed it, a massive fire that changed, well, everything.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever been totally, completely lost? Like you took a wrong turn on your bike, or maybe you couldn't find your classroom on the first day of school? It's the worst feeling, right?
Well, get this. The very first lady to live in what we now call the White House, she got completely lost just trying to find it. Can you even imagine?
All right, so let's set the scene. We're going way back to the year 1800. The president's house was brand new, but yeah, it wasn't exactly ready for company.
Okay, so meet President John Adams and First Lady Abigail Adams. Now, when Abigail was traveling to meet her husband in the new capital city, things got a little crazy. The roads, they weren't even marked. The woods were so thick that her driver literally had to get out and start chopping down branches just so the carriage could pass. I mean, she was lost in the middle of a forest just trying to find what would one day become one of the most famous houses on the planet.
And when she finally got there, the house was, well, let's just say it was a work in progress. Picture this. It's this giant, massive building, but it's absolutely freezing inside. There's a whole forest right outside, but nobody's there to chop any firewood. And the new city of Washington, it was so tiny they couldn't even find enough people to hire to help out.
So, what does Abigail do? She gets creative, that's what. The giant, super fancy East Room was so empty and chilly that she just turned it into a laundry room. Yep, she strung up clotheslines and hung all the wet laundry to dry right inside the house. So yeah, definitely not the glamorous palace we think of today.
But don't worry, the house didn't stay cold and empty forever. Nope, the next presidents really started to make it feel like a home and, oh yeah, a place for some seriously amazing parties. So next up is President Thomas Jefferson, and he gets to work right away. He adds these two long wings to the sides of the house, for practical stuff like laundry and a stable. He planted these gorgeous gardens too. But things were still pretty wild back then. I'm talking people were having markets and even horse races right there on the front lawn.
Then came President James Madison and his incredible wife, Dolly. And let me tell you, Dolly Madison, she knew how to throw a party. She completely decked out the house with beautiful furniture, invited pretty much everyone, and made the president's house the place to be.
And check this out. At one of her biggest parties, she served this brand new, super fancy dessert that hardly anyone in America had ever even heard of, let alone tasted. What was it? Strawberry ice cream. Can you imagine being one of the very first people to try that?
But all those good times, all the parties and the ice cream, it was all about to come to a sudden, screeching halt. Because trouble was literally marching right towards Washington.
Okay, so the year is 1814. America is at war with Great Britain, again. And this time, British soldiers are heading straight for the capital city. Their plan? To burn it all down. And that included the president's house. President Madison isn't even there. He's off with the American troops. So Dolly is home alone when she gets the message. Enemy soldiers are coming, and they're coming fast. She has to get out. But what does she do first? Seriously, what would you do in that situation?
This is it. This is the moment where Dolly Madison has to make a choice, and she has to make it fast. And it turns out to be an incredibly brave one.
So, does she grab her own stuff? Her jewelry, her fancy clothes? Nope. She thinks about her country. She orders everyone to save the giant, famous painting of George Washington hanging on the wall. She knew that painting was a national treasure, and it just had to be saved.
And this was absolutely a team effort. Now get this. She had help from a brave young man you might remember from our last explainer, Paul Jennings. He was an enslaved servant there, and he was right in the middle of it, helping Dolly and the others rescue that priceless painting just moments before it was too late. They all managed to escape just as the soldiers marched in. And you won't believe what the soldiers found. They walked right in, and there's a full dinner, all cooked and waiting for the president. So, what did they do? They sat right down and ate the whole thing. And once they were done with their stolen feast, they did exactly what they'd come there for. They set the president's house on fire. That beautiful house, just 14 years old, burned and burned all night long. You can just imagine people in the city watching in total shock. It actually took a massive rainstorm to finally put out the flames.
So, the fire was a total disaster. But, sometimes out of the worst things, something new can start. The house was about to be reborn. And it was even going to get a brand new name.
Okay, here's a fun fact for you. Before the fire, the president's house wasn't white. Nope, it was made of this light brown stone. So when they rebuilt it, they had all these ugly black scorch marks all over it. The solution? Just cover it all up with a thick coat of white paint.
And once it was painted all white, people started giving it a nickname. It wasn't just the president's house anymore. Everyone started calling it the White House. And well, that name definitely stuck.
It took 3 whole years, but workers rebuilt the house from the ground up. They even reused some of the old stones that survived the fire. It was beautiful and strong all over again, ready for the next part of its incredible story.
So the White House came back even stronger than it was before, becoming this amazing symbol of resilience. And it kind of makes you think it's not just buildings that have to be strong. So that leaves us with a big question. What do you think makes a whole country strong? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.